Hello, and welcome to Odds on Serie A. It's match day 33. Well, we will need to wait another few days to officially say that Napoli are the champions of Italy. They have been made to wait by Salernitana, but if they have been waiting for 33 years, I believe they could do it for a couple of more days. But to talk about this and to analyze all 10 matches and share his best tips and predictions, we have Daniele Fisichella, as always. How are you, Danny?
Ciao, Leo. All good? Well, everything was set. Everything was prepared. The game was smooth. For Napoli, it seemed to be the perfect scenario. But normally in these things, people do forget one thing. The opposition. There is still a team. And by the way, Salernitana unbeaten in 9 games. So obviously a tough enough to crack. Look, the cork are still in the champagne. They'll have to wait just a little more, but obviously is done. And then they'll have five weeks to celebrate. But midweek, there are a lot of important games at the top, at the bottom for the Champions League fight. So it's not just about Napoli.
Absolutely. But before we get going with the show, do not forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. As always, we ask you to do. But now, here we go. Danny, our first match is Atalanta at Spezia in Bergamo. Atalanta is still, of course, in the mix along Roma, Inter, and Milan for the Champions League spot. 55 points, 2 points behind the other 3. After the win against Roma, they ratified their good moment, winning in Turin against Torino with an amazing solo goal from Duban. I think for a long time we have been missing a Duban goal like that one, combining technique, speed, physicality, everything that Duban can show, and he provided before for Atalanta. Atalanta may still be wondering, Danny, I believe, what could have been of them if they were a little bit more focused and consistent between the beginning of February and the beginning of March. Because they lost 4 out of 6, I believe, during that month and a half. But still, they're going to be pushing for sure for a good finish of the season. As much as La Spezia needs the points here because they're out of the red zone, only on goal difference, Atalanta, Danny, should win and score goals in here.
The thing with Atalanta, Leo, is that we always said time and time again, when they had the match ball, they almost certainly failed to convert it, and their home form has been poor in the last few seasons. But recently, in the last 2 games, 2 wins, and I saw an Atalanta a little bit more pragmatic. Instead of trying to impose the style, they adapted a little bit more to the style of the opposition. And against Torino, they were okay. They were in control. The first goal was lucky. It was a gift from Milinkovic-Savic. And then the second goal is a beauty. But, they show the character after the equalizer from Sanabria. Atalanta have got a great advantage. They don't play in the European Cups. So obviously now they should be fresher. And with the return of a man like Zapata, as well as Muriel, then you got a very strong front 3. At the moment, Lukman is injured, with Højlund as well, considering also Boga coming from the bench. So obviously going forward, they are a force. The problem is Atalanta is that sometimes they switch off. They have the occasional lapses of concentration. It is a team that still concede quite a lot of goals. Coming into Spezia, I predicted a game with plenty of goals against Monza, but then I saw the lineups and Zola wasn't there. Without their main man, they are struggling. It is a team that plays well, Spezia. Is never afraid to build from the back and, play good football, not just throwing long. But without Zola, they struggle. Zola should be back for this one, by the way. Now, Spezia need a point at least, because at the moment they're level with Verona. If they finish level, there's going to be a tie break. There's going to be, a playoff. That's for the relegation. But obviously, they cannot count on that. I think Atalanta finally are going to win a decisive game. And I think they're going to win at home. And normally, if they win, it's never a dull 1-0. So I'm going to go for Atalanta win and over 1.5 goals here, which pays 177. I can't hear you, Leo.
Now, yes.
Now, yes.
Now, yes, because I mute myself. I didn't want any sound to come into your way, but I forgot to unmute it later. But now, yes, you can hear me now. No, I was saying that, of course, for anyone also expecting Atalanta to win, and as you say, when they win, it's never 1-0 or a very marginal win. Atalanta to score in both halves comes with a little bit higher odds of what you said, 2.10 for Atalanta to score in both halves. Now we got Danny Juventus with Lecce. Juve rescue a point in Bologna, and Arkadiusz Milik performed one of the worst penalty misses I've seen this season. I don't know what's that jump.
It's a pass. Yeah, he's a Jorginho. He did a Jorginho.
Yeah, but a Jorginho, but the jump was even higher. I don't know. It was ready for the Olympics. Then Mattias Sule could have won it as well at the end. Good. He missed an incredible opportunity with an open goal. With the point restoration, Juve still fell 60 points, but yesterday felt like a missed opportunity, I believe, to maintain a fine point gap with the fourth spot. Nani, it's true that they always create opportunities. Even if you look at the highlights of a game for you will see they create opportunity. Of course, they have a lot of talent at their disposal, but they're showing a bit of inconsistency here. Just one win in the last 8 matches in all competitions for Juve. Lecce won massive 3 points on the weekend against Udinese, but this one is a must win for Juve.
It is because despite of the minus 15, plus 15, and I think in the end the points are going to be deducted again, for Allegri, it's very important to finish second on paper and say, we finished second, it was a good season, despite everything, we didn't manage to hang on to the second spot. So it's more of a symbolic result for Juventus. But the problem with Juventus is that after 2 years of Allegri, I would be able to tell you how they play, what kind of pattern of play they have. They have a lot of individuality. They have individual talents that when they click, they can resolve the matches. But that seems about it. They seem almost to play with hunger, with fury. They get reaction after conceding a goal or maybe at the beginning. But then that's pretty much it. There isn't really a game plan. They seem to be willing to exploit the opposition deficiencies rather than imposing themselves. And the last few games for Juve have been really disappointing. The game in Coppa Italia against Inter, the semi-final, they were dominated in the midfield. I look at also the game they played against Lazio a couple of weeks ago, a very awful, like Rabiot said, first half. And yesterday against Bologna, okay, there was a little bit of a VAR shamble. The monitor were not working. The penalties were given by the VAR officials miles and miles away. Maybe there was a foul from Orsolini before the penalty, etc. But they really were not very quick off the block. And then they reacted afterwards. If you look at the numbers of goal scorer of Juventus, I think they are the same as last season. And you would have thought, well, this is a team that has improved. But then the question is, has he actually improved? With the personnel that Allegri's got at the moment, can they play better than this? Unless you can put on the pitch Di Maria, Chiesa and a striker all at the same time, I think you can't see really a great quality. Let's see if Di Maria is fit for this one. Lecce, on the other hand, massive 3 points, hard-fought game against Udinese, scored by penalty with Strefezza, who is their top scorer, but is suspended for this one. The only worry I got about Lecce is that they do not have a goal scorer. I think in the last 5 or 6 games of the season, you need a goal scorer to drag yourself out of the relegation zone. Lecce maybe don't have a great goal scorer. For all the mediocrity that Juventus has shown us this season, I think they're going to win this one, okay? They can't really afford to drop points. I'm going to go for a national handicap -1 for Juve, 209, which pays amazingly well considering how small the margins of wins sometimes have been. But against stragglers, this season Juventus have been consistent, home and away. -1 national handicap, 209.
Perfect. So that was Juventus Lecce. Next in line to analyze, Danny, we have Salernitana Fiorentina. Danny, if it's your birthday and you invite me to your house to celebrate, and I eat the cake before everyone's managed to sing you happy birthday, you won't invite me anymore.
No, I wouldn't. I'll ask you, bring your own cake next time.
Yes, but because it was something similar to Salernitana in Napoli, they were invited to a party, but they ate the cake before Napoli could start celebrating. Memo Ochoa had one of those afternoons when you think he can stop everything. The point was celebrated, of course, by Salernitana, who are sitting 7 points above the relegation zone with 18 points still to play. So they can start to believe that they're like in a pretty much safe zone, because unless a footballing catastrophe happens, they will play Serie A next season. Fiorentina had a very comfortable and enjoyable afternoon yesterday with Sampdoria in Firenze, 5-0, Danny, without any problem. A win for La Fiore has also 1.82. Will you go that route?
Potentially, because Fiorentina had a little bit of a blip in the last few games. They lost against Lecce Poznan, then the 0-0 against Cremonese, lost against Monza when they were 2-0 up. But Fiorentina have got so much quality up front and so much changes, so much rotation they can do that when everything clicks, they're gonna score goals. And I think the only issue with Fiorentina this season is that they haven't scored as many goals as chances produced. I think if you look at the goal tally, they're still down compared to last season, but finally everything went for them and they scored 5 goals. By the way, Fiorentina in Serie A have got 18 different goal scorers, same as Napoli. So that tells you that, there is a lot of quality there. I mean, obviously, Fiorentina scored the first goal in Serie A this season with Castrovilli, with Terzic, so that helped that tally as well. But I think it's a team that we will see more of it. The only problem, again, is trying to control the games and manage the games emotionally. They seem to be able to go only 100 miles an hour. Salernitana, on the other hand, as I mentioned, 9 games unbeaten. That's the longest unbeaten run in Serie A at the moment. 7 of them are draws. Also, Salernitana is the team that has drawn most games in Serie A, 13th, but credit to them for changing the manager at the right time, bringing on Paulo Sousa. Paulo Sousa wants to make the most of their attacking force of Salernitana, and compared to last season, they have scored 17 or 18 goals more. So that tells you a lot, really, where the strength is. Yes, of course, against Napoli, always they were going to be under the cosh. Ochoa was fantastic, but Napoli didn't have many clear-cut chances, to be fair. Salernitana had a very good display, and then in the end, Abdoulaye Dia scored. The former electrician turned the lights off on the Maradona. So, I mean, you always have to consider the opposition. Has been borderline disrespectful against Salernitana. This is a good side, that against Inter, so not to be underestimated. For this one, pretty much nothing at stake. I'm going to go for an over 2.5 goals, 192 in Salernitana Fiorentina.
Perfect. And now then, Danny, one of those matches where there is no match at play, because I'm referring to Sampdoria Torino. Yeah. I mean, for Sampdoria, the hope to avoid relegation, of course, is mathematically possible, but is linked to a miracle. 10 points away from safety with 18 points to play, and they are coming at the back of, I said before, 5-0 defeat against Fiorentina. To play at home is far from something they will rely on, because they have count only 1 win in Genova this season. The story for Torino is the one where there is not much left to play. You can't get relegated, you can't get to Europe. No. You are just counting the days to go on holiday. 1 win in the last 6 Serie A matches for Torino. Torino win has odds of, closer to odds on average on the Oddspedia website, which is not bad. But the lack of motivation is a concern for me here for them, Danny.
Yeah, it should be for both. I mean, for Sampdoria, I think they throw the towel a little bit. Right. You see the second half reaction against Fiorentina, the lack of reaction. Everything is going against them. The club is in turmoil. There are financial issues as there. Probably is going to be sold. Everything's gone wrong. They're even questioning whether Stankovic is going to stay or not. They might sack him now before the end of the season. So again, that will be the second manager change in the season. It is difficult for Sampdoria. It's clearly a team that never thought they were going to be there in that situation. The players they cannot react to being dragged down. And I'm sure there is quality there. There are players of good quality, the likes of Sabiri, Harry Winks, Lammers, Gabbiadini, Nuiting, Augello. These are all experienced Serie A players who would never thought to go down with a team like Sampdoria. But really, they are really struggling at home. They've been poor. Torino, on the other hand, is a side that they never score more than 2 goals this season. So when they concede, it's hard that they're going to win. I think they got an issue with the goalkeeper. I've said it time and time again. I think Milinkovic-Savic is a bit suspect in goalkeeping. Torino have got a good team spirit. They are a physical team, hard to beat, very intense. Tony Sanabria is having a very important season with 10 goals. Juric will want them to go out the end of the season, with decent results and at least get more points compared to last season, because that's the only things that they can be judged on. By the way, Juric, former Genoa man, you might want to just put the nail in the coffin of Sampdoria, which, by the way, next time, in a week time, when we do another video after 2 match days, Sampdoria might be already relegated. Yeah. I'm going to go for a double chance X2 and under 2.5 goals. I can't see a high scoring game. So either a draw or a win for Torino, but in a low scoring game. That pays decent money, 220.
Yeah, I can see that, and I agree with that, with the low scoring game in there, as you just said. Now the turn is for Milan and Cremonese. Dani, Stefano Pioli's team fighting with Inter for the Champions League spot next season. I'm fighting for the Champions League final this season as well against Inter. I don't know if one comes as a distraction for the other. We will see. But an incredible point in the capital on Saturday with Saelemaekers equalizing in the 96th minute of the match. After going behind in the 93rd minute of the game. We are going to wait this point maybe at the end of the season, but it could prove maybe, who knows, to be crucial for them. At home, 3 wins and 2 draws in the last 5 for Milan. Cremonese, another one, needed a miracle to avoid relegation. On the weekend against Verona, they could not hold the lead and had to settle for a point. Dani, is all Milan written here for you?
I think it is, and Milan should be the most disappointed of the two sides after the Roma game, because Roma had millions of injuries and really they barely put an 11 together, whereas Milan had everyone fit. The game was absolutely awful for 93 minutes, was barely unwatchable. Two teams who probably mastered 3 shots on target altogether, and they only tried to defend and sit back. And in the end, Milan conceded and equalized a bit luckily. But I think it wasn't all too bad for Milan. I think we've seen worse performances, but it would be disappointing not to have taken the opportunity. They need to bounce back here at the moment because they've been leapfrogged by Inter because of the goal difference. Here, obviously, there is an opportunity to rack up the points before next weekend. There is again the Roma-Milano clash. This time is Lazio-Milan and Roma-Inter, of course. Against Cremonese, an opportunity to win consistently. I think the last 7 games at home for Milan have been all under 2.5 goals. Milan can keep the door closed, of course, with the return of Mike Maignan, so important now. Cremonese, on the other hand, at some point, you will say, well, they've given up. They still got a lot of pride in them, and I think the recent results testify it. 0-0 in the Coppa Italia semi-final against Fiorentina away, the draw against Verona. When they were reduced to 10 men, they conceded at the end. They're not going to go out with being completely destroyed by Milan or a heavy scoring. Maybe it could be a low scoring and under 3.5 goals. Let's go for Milan to win 2-0. Maybe a professional display. Could even be a 1-0 or 2-0 win for Milan, but nothing exciting, I would say. Milan to win 2-0, 191 for this one.
Perfect. So that was Milan Cremonese. Next, we have Lazio Sassuolo in the Olimpico. Dani, at this same point last season, if I'm correct, Lazio were 7th with 52 points. So to find themselves second now with 61 points is definitely a good improvement for them. Yesterday, they were in the front foot against Inter after Felipe Anderson scoring the counter, and everything was looking fine until the last quarter of the game, because I think the equalizer is on the 70th minute, and then they conceded 3 times in those last 15 minutes, and they went home with nothing. Sassuolo came to life in the last 10 minutes of the game with Empoli to win 2-1 from behind. But for them, maybe a similar case to Torino could be making here, not much to play. But I believe when you don't see too much to play, that's the inconsistency coming into play. Lately, 2 wins, 2 defeats, and 1 draw in the last 5. Can we expect an open game here, Dani? Lazio needs to win. Sassuolo not playing for much. Both teams to score 1.95.
Could be. I think it's a good angle here because Sassuolo have proven time and time again, especially when they play away, they can hurt teams. They like to play open football. You know, they're not going to be cagey. Sassuolo have racked up good results against teams that, you know, they like to play. And Lazio, the last two defeats are a little bit unusual for them because the things they had that other teams didn't have was the regularity. They were really consistent in their games, and now two defeats, one a little bit unlucky against Torino, maybe they deserve the draw, and against Inter they had the chances to make it 2-0, but maybe there was a warning sign. In the last 20 minutes Inter looked much fitter despite having played midweek. When as soon as they put on Lautaro Martinez, they look better, they had more in their legs, and Lazio kind of crumbled a little bit. So maybe Sarri will think about this. We said many times Lazio squad is not the deepest, and Sarri needs to make sure to make the good rotation, but obviously they got the advantage of playing once a week, and you know, comes end of May, Milan, Inter, Juventus, Roma, they would have played every 3 days since the beginning of April, so that must count for something. But they must make sure they win this one before they travel to Milano again to play against Milan. So this is a match point, really. Win this one, and you're almost certain of a Champions League finish with or without Juventus points being deducted. Immobile hasn't scored in ages. You know, he's been involved in a car crash, but maybe a good pick is for Immobile to score again. Sassuolo, on the other hand, difficult team to play. As I said, they got goal scorers. They seem fit as well. Berardi scored 2. Even with 10 men, they managed to beat Empoli after Pinamonti was sent off. Pinamonti is going to be missed this one. Also, Maxim Lopez. I think Lazio should have more than enough to beat them in an open game. Again, I can't see a 1-0 win here. So I'm going to go Lazio win and over 1.5 goals. Pays really well, 231.
And from Lazio Sassuolo, we move on to Monza Roma. You mentioned, Danny, when we talk about Milan, that Roma was difficult. You mentioned the injuries they have, that they could hardly put an 11 players on the pitch. But still, I believe when you go up in the 93rd minute of the match, it's difficult to find an explanation maybe for Mourinho here, because in the end they lost 2 points, which they could have been now in a Champions League spot with those 2 points being so close to that. And also, Danny, don't you think that as much as I believe these almost 2 seasons with Mo in Roma has been very, very good, sometimes in these games they come always a little bit short? Okay, again, the explanation for this one, the injuries they had, but against Juve as well, dropping points in the last minutes of the game. Monza enjoying a very good season, comfortable win in La Spezia on the weekend, but Roma cannot afford to travel back to the capital without the 3 points, especially because what comes next after on match day 34.
Yeah, there is Roma Inter, and this is how we go. Look, I agree with you, Leo, in the terms that sometimes in these big matches, Roma seem to be very reactive and not proactive under Mourinho. But if you look at the way Roma were approaching the matches before Mourinho came with Paulo Fonseca, they were never winning big matches, and Mourinho has changed the mentality. This season, they beat Juventus, they beat Inter, and, you know, against Milan on the reverse fixture, they were 2-0 down and they managed to equalize in the last minute. So there is obviously a change in style, in the character as well. And it seemed, criminal to drop 2 points after you score in the 93 minutes, but the draw is the right results after all. Roma didn't do enough. I think in a team that has got injuries of Wijnaldum, Smalling, Llorente, Kumbulla, Bellotti, Kastrup, Matic is suspended, you know, it is difficult really to see Roma doing more than what they actually do. I think they are becoming really good at managing the tight margins. Perhaps all the wins from now on are going to be 1-0 or 2-0 wins. I can't expect them really scoring a lot of goals. When Dybala is not there, really there is a problem in the creative department. So this is going to be a tricky one for Roma against the side Monza that plays expansive football. They are 10th in the league. They might finish even higher. Newly promoted sides, but only on paper because they got plenty of experience on the pitch. And they got probably 2 of the best wing backs in Serie A, Churria and Carlos Augusto, both scored against Spezia. I think this one of the 2 is going to make a big move in the summer to at least a top 6 team. Credit to Monza for playing well. You know, they really play neat, tidy, move the ball well, but they also got a conviction. This could be tricky for Roma, let's see maybe if it's another Mourinho masterclass, a 1-0 win. I'm going to go for a first half draw here, 206. Roma are strong. Monza home cannot be underestimated. Maybe they cancel each other out initially. First half draw, 206.
Definitely was something I was looking for. The first half draw in this Monza and Roma, and a low scoring encounter. From that one, we move on to Verona Inter now. Nerazzurri, great Sunday we mentioned, especially those last 15 minutes. Lautaro Martinez scoring a brace, 3 points against Lazio. They are now fourth on goal difference. 3 of their last 6 fixtures for Inter will be against Roma, Napoli, and Atalanta.
Yes.
So a tough end of the season for them. But we cannot talk about those games if they don't do their job against Verona, aside in relegation places. Full-time win for Inter, odds close to 1.80. But seeing how usually they tend to turn up in the second half, odds for the second half win for Inter, high odds of 2.15. But what's your take here, Danny?
This is a good point you make, because they scored 3 goals against Lazio in the second half, and I mentioned before they look fitter in the second half. Yeah. They scored 3 goals in the second half against Empoli in the previous game, and it seemed to me almost like Inter are peaking again at the right time physically. It might seem absurd since the beginning of April they're playing every 3 days, but now the physical condition of players like Lautaro Martinez, Lukaku, Brozovic, Mkhitaryan, Acerbi, Darmian is improving. So if this is the case, it's obviously a very good omen for Inter with big games to play. Of course, the league is gone, and their form in the league has been awful, 11 defeats. But good things are to come, and of course, the Coppa Italia final not to be underestimated. The difference between the defeat against Fiorentina, against Monza, against Juve, and the wins against Lazio and Empoli is just 1 and 1 only. They took the chances and scored, because in terms of chances produced, is absolutely the same. If you're going to look at the expected goals in those games, is the same. They just couldn't put it in. I'm expecting Lukaku to start again with Lautaro Martinez. I mean, obviously they have a good partnership. It's La Lula. 3 years ago they were the best partnership in the world. Now we got obviously Kvaratskhelia and Osimhen, but they do click. It's different. When Lukaku is there, Lautaro is better, and vice versa. And Lautaro now is on his streak. Score. Then for 3 months doesn't score. Then scores. We know. You know him. But now he's scoring.
Lautaro could have passed to Lukaku on the first goal, actually.
Yes. But he scored. Scored. And Lukaku 2 assists. One for Gosens, who dislocated his shoulders, by the way, scoring. But we should be. I think it'll be all right. Verona, on the other hand, dangerous, because they won 4 of the last 6 home games. They obviously have got a bit of a grip now into the relegation fight. Level with Spezia. Between the two of them, I think Verona got more quality than Spezia, so I would probably tip them to be saved, unless Lecce or Empoli get dragged on into the relegation zone again. But again, careful with Verona, because they're going to wait for Inter. They're not going to be pressing high. They're probably going to be content with a draw, but try to hit them on the counter. Another goal for Simone Verdi, a little bit of a salvation specialist, after what he did again with the Salernitana last season. I think if Inter continue this way, taking the chances, the game are going to be high scoring. Over 2.25 goals, 189. Let's not underestimate. Away defense of Inter is not great. I think the 6th worst away defense in Serie A. They might concede 1, but I think if they take the chances, more goals to come. Over 2.25, 189. By the way, if only 2 goals are scored, you lose only half your stake.
That's Verona Inter. And now the one before the last is Empoli at home against Bologna. Empoli 5 points above relegation zone, despite the defeat we mentioned with Sassuolo on the weekend. After that crucial win against direct rivals Lecce, and after a great point in San Siro against Milan, they are now in 3 consecutive defeats for Empoli. Bologna, another 1-1 at home. I'm saying another because they drew against Juventus this weekend, but before there was a 1-1 against Milan. I don't think so anyone would see those results as bad, not at all. I believe more painful is the defeat with Verona on Matchday 31 in any case. But again, motivation maybe is the key. I believe maybe easier to find it against Juve or Milan in that kind of matches that with the relegation opponent. I can't see goals in Purin in this one, Danny. Goals under 2.5, 1.75 here.
although both defenses, they're not exceptional. Empoli have got a poor defensive record, despite the star goalkeeper is back, Vicario. They do seem to concede all the time. Empoli only won games 2-0. So when they concede Empoli this season, they never won. So that's a curious stat for a team that is conceding quite a lot of shots, quite a lot of goals as well. You know, against Sassuolo, really, they took the lead, could score the second one. They were one man up and conceded 2 in the dying minutes of the game. Empoli is a nice team to watch. They're very young, sometimes a little bit naive. They got quality players like Baldanzi, Cambiaghi, Parisi. I think they're going to have a very good future. But for the moment, they need to get at least 3 or 4 more points on the table. Otherwise, they're going to be dragged in. And the recent form is awful. They had a similar slump last season after a very good first round of fixtures. The Girone di Ritorno was awful. I think this is one that potentially Bologna might look at winning. Because, as I said, yeah, you said rightly, against the top teams, they are motivated. They also beat Inter recently, drew against Lazio home. Away from home is a different story. I think it's the worst away defense in Serie A, or the second worst away defense. But they can score goals, and it could be. I think I disagree with you. I think this could be a high-scoring game. Maybe a both to score 198, considering defensive frailties of both teams.
Yeah, 28 goals conceded away from Bologna this season. That's quite a big tally for them. And Danny, the last match to analyze, to show your tips and predictions, is Udinese Napoli. Again, I repeat something I said at the beginning. If they're waiting for 33 years, they can do it for a few more days. Actually, there is a possibility of themselves being champions before playing against Udinese. They need just 2 points out of the last 6 matches, but again, they could be champions without even need to win against Udinese. But still, it was painful to see everyone so happy and ready to celebrate. But you mentioned as well, and I agree with that, you cannot underestimate your opponents. You still need to play, and you cannot count the eggs in your basket before you have them there. This said, on the next Serie A show, you should be talking of Napoli as champions of Italy, Danny. Also 1.97 anyway for an away win are quite decent here, Danny. Would you think anyway that Napoli players would prefer to know that they are champions before playing, or they would like to win it themselves?
100%, Leo. If you tell me, can you win the Scudetto 1 day before, even 1 minute before playing, I sign on a white paper. Of course, they prefer if Lazio drops point and then they play under pressure. Of course, this game is going to be played on Thursday evening. Everything was postponed because they thought Napoli were going to be champion and they're going to be public order problems. So, you know, for the headache of the chief of police in Napoli, this game is played on a Thursday evening. So imagine what could happen if Napoli then are crowned champion. But hopefully they make headlines for the right reason. Look, Napoli are tired. They look tired physically and mentally, and they've been looking this way for at least a month and a half, because the players have played a lot of games without much turnover. Also, you have to consider that all these players, they never won the Scudetto, they never won a title. I think mentally, they are struggling to controlling sometimes the dying minutes of the game. Look at the way they conceded against Salernitana. I'm not sure the marking was great. I'm not sure Osimhen is supposed to mark Boulaïdia there. There is a little bit of frenetic, you know, attitude, be frantic. The same Kvaratskhelia now sometimes seems to play on his own, seems to be like the owner of the ball, doesn't pass it as much. They try to win it on their own. There is clearly a bit of nervousness, but as soon as they win the league, you know, everything will go out the window. No one will remember about it. And maybe they're going to play the last 3-4 games freely and score plenty of goals. But they are struggling at the moment. Udinese, on the other hand, they got nothing to play for. If Udinese had something to play, potentially this could have been a tricky game, I think. But it's not going to be as such. I'm expecting Lazio to win, and I'm expecting Napoli to get a draw here. Probably a low-scoring game, knowing the draw will be enough. Under 2.5 goals here, 2-12. Also, Udinese, really, they struggle to score these times. They're going to be without Beto, without success. It's a good side, but it's a good side at keeping the ball. You know, they don't have a lot of cutting edge. Under 2.5 goals, 2-12. By the way, Napoli are the best defense in Serie A, home and away. just need a point and go and celebrate.
So that's everything you need to know for this Serie A match day 33. But before we bring the curtain down on the show, what's your best bet and your ACCA, Dani?
Best bet for me this week, this midweek game, is Juventus to beat Lecce at home and pays 163.
And the ACCA, Dani?
4 wins, very simple. Atalanta win, Juventus win, Lazio win, Milan win. I'm backing, of course, the favorites, and the total odds, decent, 565.
It's very nice, 565 for those 4 wins. Let's see how it's going to be after match day 33 is completed. Guys, many thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show. And before hitting to Oddspedia website to place your bets, please not forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. See you next time, Dani. A pleasure as always.
Ciao, ciao. See you next time.
Bye-bye.